All right. Oh, didn't mean to have my mic with my headset cable. I'm going in here a little bit unprepared than usual. This is going to be a special episode where I'm going to be going over the Codex entries for Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. This is something I did for Assassin's Creed Revelations and what's called when I was working on it for the Ezio collection. Unfortunately, I did not realize until after the series was done, really, if I did realize it, I had no idea how to fix it. But there's some inconsistency with the audio, so for that reason I will be doing that series over again. But for the 360 version. But like what happened with the Assassin's Creed Revelations, I'm gonna show off all the locations for the all the locations. I'm gonna show off all the Codex entries, but I'm only going to be reading the important characters, I guess. I'm gonna be reading the important characters, the antagonists, and that's it. I will not be reading any of the historical I'll not be reading any of the historical it's called events, but something else I guess I will do since this is just completely well, I guess while I'm here I might as well also read the Franklin's inventions as well, since that is also something that I'm going to be going over in the next episode, where I'm going to be showing all the awards for the manor. But let's get started. We're going to be starting with locations, and once again I will not be reading any of these locations, but if you want to read it, go ahead and pause the video and read it yourself. But really, it's just here for people that care about lore, and I can understand that people do not care about lore at all and they just want to skip this episode. Honestly, the next episode will probably be not as entertaining as well, because I'm just going to be going over all the awards and showing off all the how to get each award as well. But I'll also be reading the almanac entries for that you collect for Benjamin Franklin. The almanac entries are part of the Poor Richard's Almanac, something that Benjamin Franklin actually wrote in his lifetime. So for those people that care about that kind of stuff, I will be reading out all of Benjamin Franklin's almanacs. But in the next episode, I will be going over how to unlock everything. I will also be reading all the newspapers in the next episode. So I guess have that to look forward to. I should say that very soon, if not by the time this video is already published, there will be a new playlist set up on my YouTube channel for the Tyranny of King Washington DLC for Assassin's Creed 3. At this point in time, sorry, my throat. I just finished eating Applebee's, so my throat is kind of scratchy from drinking soda, or mucusy. I don't know what you call it, but it just gets this way whenever I drink soda. But I'm already 2 streams deep into the DLC, and personally I've been really enjoying it. At first I wasn't really kind of having a good time because I was very confused about the direction of the story, because it just didn't really make much sense to me. But I started to really enjoy this DLC as soon as I actually got the first abilities, and really the abilities just make the game just so good. And honestly, by the middle of the game, I started to get middle of the first episode, I started to get more of a grasp of the the plot line of the story. So once I realized that this isn't really taking place in Connor's world, and I still haven't just figured out if Connor's like reliving like a dream sequence or if he's like in some alternate universe. But once I figured out that it's not actually tied to Connor's actual world, I started to enjoy the DLC a lot more because I was just so confused when I first started out. But that's something to look forward to. I honestly think that maybe 1 or 2 more live streams and I will 100% the DLC. And I'll be starting the new 100% playthrough for Assassin's Creed Liberation. So have that to look forward to. But while I'm going through this, I will say I'm really glad that for the first time ever, I've actually 100%ed Assassin's Creed 3 for the first time. A lot of the things I've done on this series, I have done for the first time. I have definitely never have gone 100% synchronization on all missions, so that itself is an accomplishment. I've never gotten all the collectibles. I have never done all the naval missions. I have never done all of the homestead missions. And I've never gotten all the achievements. And really, the only achievement that gave me any symptom of trouble was the original gamer achievement. And I kind of cheesed my way through that, if I'm being honest. But that's the only achievement that really gave me any form of trouble. But overall, I've been having a good time with this game, and I honestly wouldn't mind playing this game again, but on the 360 version, so I can get the achievements I missed out on the original game. I did find out that there are some 100% requirements that are different in the 360 version in comparison to the remastered version. In my opinion, the remastered version kind of made things a lot easier. Because, like, a case in point, the mission where the first mission of sequence 12, before you do, chasing Lee, the final mission of the game, in the original game, you couldn't kill more than 15 regulars, and there were 12 regulars you had to, and it's available right at the beginning, so you're getting attacked by 12 different soldiers, and you're allowed to kill 12 soldiers, but you can't kill more than 15. And apparently, as I was reading that apparently it's easy to do if you just summon your assassins to do all the fighting, because it doesn't count when they get a kill for you. It doesn't count as a kill for you if your assassin kills the enemies. I should say. But I realized that this thing that I was looking at was actually a 100% guide for the original Assassin's Creed 3 and not for the remastered. So it wasn't as helpful as it could be, and for that reason I end up kind of not able to 100% the first mission the time that I wanted to. It was actually forced to 100% it in the next stream. But all that being said, I really haven't noticed that many differences in the mission structure. Apparently there are a lot of differences, but I honestly haven't really noticed that much. I may be completely it could be that I just haven't played the original game in years. I just haven't noticed a difference, but I honestly don't really this game has just been really enjoyable to me. As all the locations from Boston, we're now going into New York. I will say New York is quite possibly one of my least favorite areas because there's some areas that are just a pain to navigate. And that area mainly resorts to the burnt out part of New York. It's just, there's so many parts, there's like half the city is just really kind of cool to explore, but half the city is just annoying to navigate, and it's just, half the city was burned down, and It's just all the buildings are all huts. So it's just it can be kind of a pain to navigate. And there's some missions where you have to just chase down a target in the burnt out parts of New York. There's some missions where you have to there's some missions where you have to like an example. There are several what was called. There are several manuscript pages that are flying around New York in the burnt out district, and it can be such a pain for me to get that. And the only reason why I got it is just trial and error. It's just I don't think I've ever had one where I was actually able to get it on the first try in the burnt out areas, but that's the only problem I have. And also, New York is kind of home to one of my least favorite sequences, in my opinion. I generally hate the prison sequence with Thomas Hickey, and I especially hate it even more because of the fact that I realize it kind of forces you into that. Because what people don't really realize when you're if you were watching my series is when I left off the stream, I was at the homestead just starting sequence 6 or 7 or whatever, but I was at the homestead and I had homestead missions available there, but I couldn't do it because when I logged back into stream, I was in New York and it was no, I couldn't leave New York. I couldn't fast travel back to the homestead. It simply did not give me the option to. And as soon as I try and when I try to move forward just a little bit, I immediately triggered the next mission, and I wasn't streaming at the time, so I had to pause the game and wait until I was ready to go live, which just kind of made me. It kind of made me like not like that sequence even more, and it's just not that enjoyable of a sequence for me. It's just I really hate it when games force you into missions. It's just really my pet peeve. I like to start the missions when I'm good and ready, and when the game forces you to do that, I just get irritated. But that's just my personal problem. Again, people may just not really care about that kind of stuff. There's probably more people that play Assassin's Creed that just boss rush the story and don't care about the collectibles. But as a 100% completionist who likes to do all the side activities before I do the main missions, it's just kind of annoying to me. But we are just about done with New York. I think the next one is the frontier. I will say the frontier is. I kind of have mixed opinions on the frontier. At one point, I do kind of like exploring the area. Another point, I do kind of wish you can lower your notoriety so that you're not always wanted. Because it would be kind of nice to be able to go through that area without worrying about getting into conflict with any of the guards. But that's just a minor gripe with that area. I honestly kind of really enjoy exploring the frontier, and really, one of my favorite missions of this game is actually the Hunting Society missions and the Frontiersman missions. And it's really just, I really wish there was more to do for those missions instead of just being like 10 for each, I believe. But that's just my personal opinion. I do also really enjoy being able to explore Connor's village and just being able to check in every now and then. I think that at the beginning of the game, when you first play as Connor, I think his village was actually in a different location, and I believe they relocated after Charles Lee burned down his village, but I may be wrong. I think it was said that they relocated, and it was relocated to the place where it's technically at now, but I honestly don't know if they actually did relocate or if that was if it had just been the same place. I'm not gonna reload an earlier sequence just to see, but Uh, that is just something that I've been kind of hearing about, and it'll be kind of cool if it actually was true, I guess. But this about does it for Frontier. Ralph Waldo Emerson, that's interesting. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a poet, and I believe no, I think I might be getting my poets mixed up. There was a someone that I know of who was famous for his poetry focusing on Walden Pond or Walden Pond. But I thought it was Emerson, but maybe someone else. I'm not that much into poetry, to be honest. This is where we started off. This is Theodore Royal. This is where we started off as Hatham Kinway. Possibly one of the most underrated missions, in my opinion, even though we're only there for like maybe 10 minutes. I do feel like it was a great start to introduce us to Hatham Kinway. Treasure Shop was where we first got here, where we first went to after the Boston Massacre as Connor. Really wish I could have, it was kind of more useful to use it, but honestly, whenever I did have the option to go to it, I just couldn't do anything with him, so I don't know. Just kind of random. I really wish there's more. They say that there's markets here and you can go to the markets, but you can't buy anything there. I don't know, it's just minor gripes. Again, I'm just like nitpicking at this point, but pretty much the only place where you can buy stuff is at the general stores, but there are so many games when they actually utilize the market, so it just would be kind of cool if you could just have a spot where you can just trade stuff when you're not at the general store. I don't know, but it might be just me, but I know there's many other games that utilize markets in that fashion, so it's I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only. I know it's been done before, but it's not done in this game, I guess I will say. And naval. Really, the naval missions weren't that bad. They're definitely a lot more manageable in this game than they are in future installments. Really, the naval missions in future games are really really, I need to stop saying really. They're essentially luck based, where if you have a better ship, like a frigate or a man of war, you're more likely to win a excuse me. You're more likely to win a to complete the to succeed in the naval missions than if you were to send like a schooner or a gunboat. And honestly, kind of really hate the luck-based things, but if you spend time, like say in Black Flag, you spend time capturing man of wars and having an entire fleet of man of wars, the naval missions in those games are really trivial, and even the naval missions in Assassin's Creed Rogue, which I believe you need to do all the naval missions or to unlock Altair's sword. Naval missions in Rogue and Black Flag are really more bearable once you have captured some man of wars. Beyond that, it's Edinburgh Castle. Oh, okay. I was gonna say Edinburgh Castle is a location in Scotland, and I was so confused because I was not I did not realize that there was an Edinburgh Castle in Jamaica. That Edinburgh Castle was in Jamaica, but it was it's a different location. Okay. I don't know if this location actually exists. I really did enjoy exploring this location, but I feel like it kind of ended a little bit too quickly. Fort Walcott was a blast. Fort Walcott was really fun to play. Really, I think this was the first naval mission, the first pegleg mission I did, and it's been really a blast. Ogalum is also good. A little puzzle involved. Really, the naval missions are just fantastic. I honestly kind of prefer naval missions handled in this style, where you physically go to each mission and you use your ship to complete them, in comparison to it being like luck based essentially, or really percentage based, where you have an X percentage chance to complete a mission, successfully complete a mission. They kind of handle the same as assassination contracts in this game and previous games, honestly. Let's go on to people. We'll be going on to individuals. Mason Long Weems, later known as Parson Weems, was a one-time parish rector, became a traveling bookseller, writer, and editor. Mostly famous for his biography of the life of George Washington. First published in 1800, he was briefly the rector of the Mount Vernon parish, meaning he counted George Washington as one of his parishioners. Mount Vernon, I believe, was that the place where George Washington resided? May be wrong. Weems was a colorful character and a bit of a rogue, always with some story to tell, most of them completely untrue or vastly exaggerated. It's from Weems' biography of Washington that we get the well-known story of young George bravely confessing that he chopped down his father's prized cherry tree. Weems writes that the story is too true to be doubted, but who knows whether the phrase too true to be doubted is too true to be doubted. Weems also went on to write biographies of Benjamin Franklin, Francis Marion, and William Penn, again prizing them being entertaining over actual fact. They sold well, however, paving the way for tabloid newspapers everywhere. He actually met Mason Weems. Is really kind of a forgettable character in the story, to be honest. We met him in the prison section of Thomas Hickey's sequence. Really a forgettable character. You literally just go to him and just play. Was it Nyman's Morris, I think? Nyman's Morris or Phantom Run, I can't remember. But you go to him and play a game and just get information and progress the mission. That's it. Never see him again. Marquis de Lafayette, better known as Lafayette, and it's not surprising as his full name was Mary Joseph Paul Espèce Roch Gilbert du Motier Marquis de Lafayette. Apologies for those French people that I just offended. His business cards must have been 3 feet long. Lafayette was a French aristocrat and soldier who decided to join the Revolutionary War and became one of George Washington's most loyal supporters. I'm sure his friends just called him MJ. Mary Jane! Lafayette came to the colonies in 1777, intent on joining the war effort, so intent in fact that he abandoned his post in the French army. When the French army found out his plans, a ship he intended to sail on was seized. And according to one story, Lafayette dressed in women's clothing to better still wait on another ship heading for the New World. We've all done it. I personally haven't, but, that's just me. Lafayette had been promised a place in the army before he left France, but once he arrived at Congress, became worried that he was just a glory seeker. When things over, Lafayette offered to work for free, and the ever-thrifty Congress awarded him a commission as Major General. That may seem a hefty rank for someone who wasn't quite 20 years old, but Lafayette was both rich and a French noble. And at the time, Congress was hoping to secure more aid from the French government, which it would have made me suspicious. There's no such thing as a free French. Lafayette was placed as an aide-de-camp to George Washington, probably because that's a French word and it seemed to fit. And the two became fast friends. Political connections aside, he was an excellent addition to the army. Lafayette was a natural leader. His first real fight was at the Battle of Brandywine, where he was wounded. But despite that, Lafayette organized and led an orderly retreat which saved hundreds of lives. In 1779, Lafayette returned to France, where he negotiated for more troops to be sent to fight in the Revolution. Exactly what Congress had hoped for when they hired him. After Lafayette returned to the colonies, he was placed in charge of the French troops and was responsible for chasing General Cornwallis into Yorktown. There were other people there too. It just wasn't one man chasing another into a town that would have looked undignified. After the war, Lafayette returned to France, where he was a leader during the initial part of the French Revolution. Unfortunately for him, he advocated a constitutional monarchy and had to flee. when that wasn't enough to satisfy the general populace. He returned to the United States in 1825 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Revolution and was greeted by adoring crowds. I must say, it's kind of interesting how he was involved in the French Revolution. I believe his Assassin's Unity takes place in the French Revolution. I wonder if Arno has met Lafayette. It'd be kind of interesting if he has. In 2002, Lafayette was declared an honorary citizen of the United States, one of 7 people to ever receive the tribute. Arrogantly, Lafayette didn't even bother to turning up to the ceremony. That's a French for you. I only know the name Lafayette because he was like the friend of Alexander Hamilton in the play Hamilton, and presumably in history. But I honestly never heard of Lafayette before I watched the Broadway play Hamilton. So, shows you what I, as an American, know about American history. James Barrett. James Barrett was a current. By the way, something I will say also about American history. In every single American history class I have been taught in both high school and college, we spend very little time on the American Revolution. And despite James Barrett apparently being an important historical figure, we didn't learn about him or many of the other important figures in the Revolution once. We spent more time on like the ending events that led to America getting its freedom than we did on the actual revolution itself. But we spent more time learning about when the Declaration of Independence was signed, when we learned more about the Boston Tea Party. We learned more about the Boston Massacre, but we did not. I swear to God, like, James Barrett is like forgotten in American history. I could be completely wrong here. There could be some places in America where they're taught about who the heck James Barrett is. I personally never even heard his name before I played this game. But anyway, James Barrett was colonel in the rebel militia for Concord and the town's representative in the Boston legislature in the years leading up to the revolution. Barrett didn't exactly want the position at the head of the military. He was 65 when the war started. He has pipe and slippers ready and probably just wanted to watch game shows. He just wanted to watch The Price is Right. Unfortunately for him, experienced commanders were in short supply, and Barrett had fought in the French and Indian Wars, so Colonel was. When the British came to Lexington and Concord looking for rebel weapon caches, troops headed straight to Barrett's farm where they were told they'd find a majority of the supplies. Of course, by the time they arrived, most of the weapons had been removed and hidden elsewhere. Barrett wasn't there either. He was some distance away organizing a militia march on the North Bridge and overseeing the eventual victory at Concord. Again, seemingly important important figure in the American Revolution. Never learned about him once. American education at work. Nicholas Biddle, fictional character. Nicholas Biddle was an ambitious young sailor who became one of the first captains of the Continental Navy. Biddle joined the Royal Navy in 1770. He may be a fictional character. I don't know. I mean the British side. But when the American Revolution started, he offered his services to the Continental Congress. No traitor then. Though it's funny how you lot don't generally see it that way. Remember, the person writing these entries is Sean Hastings, a British person. He kind of has a biased view of the Revolution. Anyway, while he was only a midshipman for the British, Congress quickly gave him command of his own ship, the Franklin. In 1776, he was offered an even better deal, command of a brand new ship named the Randolph. History is mute on the reasons behind Biddle's rise to prominence. However, I think I might be able to solve the mystery. We saw troops recruiting him, and Connor stopped at Nantucket. Biddle eventually became a privateer for the Continental Congress, patrolling British supply shipping routes, harassing their ships, and keeping the spoils from any he could capture. He had a reputation as an excellent captain. He divided the spoils evenly and never used corporal punishment against his crew. What a softy. Pitiful, really. Though I think you can see why that would be a job perk. Really, Nicholas Biddle wasn't really that tough, to be honest. But again, combat in this game can be kind of trivial if you know what to do, so Well, I guess combat in any Assassin's Creed game is trivial if you know what to do. Because a lot of the combat in Assassin's Creed games are just very simple. Israel Putnam, one of my favorite characters. Israel Putnam, more affectionately known as Old Put, something of a legendary figure in Revolutionary War history and possibly his best known soldier. A bit of a folk hero, if you will. Putnam was born in Massachusetts, but later moved to Connecticut to take up farming. He is credited with killing the last wolf in the colony, crawling into its den with a musket, a torch, and a rope tied around his feet so he could be pulled back out. Is this like an old fable about him? Does it actually happen? He really didn't like wolves. Oh, and I believe he mentioned that folk hero. That's only part of it. He joined the I can't read. He joined the colonial militia during the French and Indian War, where he earned a reputation for bravery and inspiring the soldiers around him. He was captured by a group of I believe this is pronounced Kanye Kahaga. I've only heard that name like so many times in the main story. Still cannot pronounce Connor's actual name, and I'll probably just be butchering it if I try to read it. In 1758, and rescued just before he was to be executed. In 1762, he was shipwrecked in Cuba while on a campaign. That's where, you'll love this, he learned about cigars. Cuban cigars. He became a habitual smoker and is credited with introducing the cigar to the colonies. After the war ended, Putnam returned to Connecticut, where he was a vocal opponent of the British tax policies that led to the Revolution. He founded the Connecticut branch of the Sons of Liberty. When he heard about the Battle of Lexington and Concord, he immediately signed up for the Continental Army and was named Brigadier General of the Connecticut Forces. He commanded troops at Bunker Hill, and the near success of the rebels there sealed his reputation. Washington had high hopes for Putnam as a leader, and he was named Washington's second in command in New York just prior to the Battle of Long Island. Unfortunately, Putnam was a good soldier but a poor tactician. The battle at Long Island was a rout. Putnam fared no better at his next post guarding fort on the Hudson River, where he was outmatched by General Henry Clinton. I wonder if he's the ancestor of Bill Clinton. I think he was a former president. Again, American, don't know my presidents, but I think he was a former president. I think that was a sex president that kind of had a nefarious scandal in the Oval Office, and that's all I'll say. After that, Putnam requested to be assigned to recruitment, and Washington agreed. Still, at least he has cigars. Again, as an American, I don't know much about American politics or its history, so only maybe a handful of American presidents. Best I can do. Benjamin Franklin, one of my kind of womanizer, I believe, in history. Benjamin Franklin was a renowned inventor, diplomat, and one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Translation: he was a rock star of the age. Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston in 1706 and the 10th son of a soap maker. 10 sons. I guess his parents couldn't afford television. And also, there was no television. Began working for his brother in 1718 as an apprentice printer. However, their relationship was rocky. They do mention sounds too good. I was gonna say. That's really my favorite part of Franklin, is how he wrote letters to his brother, who was in the printer, who was owned the printer shop, and he used a pen name Sounds Too Good to trick him into publishing his writing, which I thought was kind of interesting. The relationship was rocky, particularly after the elder Franklin found out that young Benjamin had been writing for the paper under a pseudonym Sounds Too Good, and writing an extremely popular column at that. Human nature being what it is, the fact that the column was popular and was probably the bigger problem. Benjamin ran away in 1723 and headed for Philadelphia, where he continued his career in printing and writing, eventually buying the Pennsylvania Gazette, the business, not just a copy. That would have been one of his lesser achievements. He stayed in Philadelphia for most of his life, but that is when he wasn't making extended trips to Europe. Franklin had a talent for persuasion that led him to an ideal diplomat. In 1757, he went to London to represent Pennsylvania in an ongoing legal battle with the Penn family. It was the first of several extended political trips to Britain, and he would act as a state representative for Massachusetts, Georgia, and New Jersey. as well in New Jersey as well. In fact, Franklin was in Europe for most of the Revolution, though he was in the colonies to help with the writing of the Declaration of Independence. Franklin was a vocal opponent of British impositions on the colonies, like the Stamp Act. Although he first fought for the rights of colonists as British citizens, he eventually became convinced, like many of the founding fathers, that independence was the only real solution. Unfortunately, Franklin's change of heart made him clash with his son William, who served as the royal governor of New Jersey. William remained an active loyalist. The father and son never spoke again. That's interesting that his son was a loyalist. I never knew about that in history because, again, American education sucks. When he wasn't founding a new nation and destroying his family in the process, Franklin was a scientist, inventing things like bifocals and more efficient wood stoves when he wasn't mapping the Gulf Stream and discovering how electricity worked. What have you done today? Made yourself a microwave meal and sat about in your underwear? No comment. Oh, well done, you. I was doing laundry today. I was walking around in my underwear and a t-shirt until noon when my laundry was done. And around noon, I made a Hot Pocket, so, great job. Thank you for that. Sean Hastings. It really makes me feel good about myself. God, how fucking ironic. It was also quite the lady killer, Jesus. This guy carrying on several friendships with women while he was in Europe. The records don't say what exactly they saw in him, certainly not his looks. Maybe women like a man who's intelligent. If that was true, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in Portugal surrounded by them and you'd be looking at a blank screen. God, I can't believe that happened. I was not expecting. God, that was just such an interesting twist. Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold was a general in the American Revolution and America's best-known traitor, though I'm not sure that's what he would have printed on his business cards. Arnold also happens to be a war hero on the American side, though many people don't know that. Before Arnold turned traitor, he had a reputation both for bravery and for genuinely caring for the soldiers who served under him. He was instrumental to the rebel capture of Fort Ticonderoga in May of 1775 when his leg was crippled during the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. So he certainly put the effort in. Fortunately, his career advancement was spotty. He had a habit of getting into arguments with his superior officers, which is usually not a good move if you want a promotion. But George Washington recommended him for various commands. Other officers had no use for him. An order was given command of West Point in 1780. Brownlee tried to turn it over to the British in exchange for 20,000 euros and commission as a brigadier general. That's the spirit. The conspiracy was uncovered before Arnold could actually betray the fort as he fled north. Nobody knows for certain why Arnold betrayed the Americans. His frustrations in being passed over for promotion obviously has something to do with it. But there's also speculation that Arnold had significant debts. The money he'd been promised would be insured to settle at. Unfortunately for him, he never received the promised cash, or at least not all of it. As the British didn't actually capture West Point, Arnold only received 6,000 euros. And while he did become a brigadier general as promised, nobody trusted him. Once a traitor, always a traitor. Hard life to live. Samuel Adams. Named after the beard, Kenny. The beard's named after him. Samuel Adams was a Boston lawyer, a signatory of the Declaration of Independence, and a prominent political figure during the lead up to the American Revolution. I think that's put your little life into perspective, hasn't it? Adams was born in Massachusetts, the son of another Samuel Adams, who was a well-off merchant. Adams, the younger one, went to Harvard. That's impressive. Graduated in 1740, went into business for himself, but was a dismal Harvard. I was unaware that Harvard University was a thing at this time. Isn't Harvard like an American university, or is that like a European? Huh. Okay. He went to business for himself but was a dismal failure and ended up taking a job in the family brewery. Oh. A lot of men turn to breweries when their businesses fall apart in a rather different way, and that was fortunate for his historical legacy. His relationship to beer may be the only reason. And after my own heart, Sean Hastings. Even though I don't drink. Adams was elected to the Massachusetts legislature in 1765, which was the beginning of his political career. He was a staunch supporter of colonist rights, mainly the ever popular arguments over whether British Parliament had a right to impose taxes, but wasn't pro-dependence, at least not at first. I think it's fair to say that he changed his mind later. Adams also portrayed as an angry radical, but that's a bit of a biased picture. Sorry. I had a burp coming up for my dinner. That's a bit of a biased picture. Adams disliked vigilantism for the most part, though he approved when a mob forced Boston stamp collector to resign, so perhaps he only disliked some vigilantism. In later years, when Adams was in Congress, he refused even to join a political party because he found the idea divisive, a sentiment which he shared with George Washington incidentally. However, Adams' reputation for being a rabble-rouser is somewhat understandable. He was a representative for the town of Boston after the Boston Massacre and succeeded in having the regulars kicked out of the town. He spoke at the Old South Meeting Hall just prior to the Boston Tea Party and said he gave the signal for the dumping of the tea, though there's some debate over whether he was involved, which I'm happy about, as a gentleman does not waste tea. Adams was infamous enough that he had to leave Boston for Lexington in 1775, to avoid arrest by the British who considered him a troublemaker. When the siege of Boston began, the Massachusetts governor offered to pardon any rebels who would lay down their arms, except Adams and John Hancock. Interesting. Overall, Adams certainly was a thorn in the side of the British, though what puzzled me is why some Americans think being an angry revolutionary was a bad thing. It got you where you are today, didn't it? Actually, hang about. Yes, maybe I see the point after all. I need to lean back because my back is starting to hurt. Paul Revere. You've heard of Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, of course. He was one of the several riders sent to warn Lexington and conquered a coming military raid on April 18th, 1775. Revere's role in the revolution was larger than that, however. He was a member of the Sons of Liberty in the Continental Congress and a participant in the Boston Tea Party. By trade, Revere was a silversmith and one of the most skilled craftsmen in the colonies. He also did copper plate engraving, most notably the image of the Boston Massacre that depicts British forces firing into the unarmed crowd at point-blank range, a very effective piece of propaganda. You get very little copper plate propaganda these days. It's a dying art. Yeah, wonder why. Revere was also a shrewd businessman, and he went where the money was. When civil work wasn't paying the bills, he made dental tools. When gunpowder was scarce during the Revolutionary War, he built a gunpowder mill. After the war ended, Revere expanded his business into bell forging, eventually making the bell that hangs in King's Chapel, a Boston landmark. Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone was a hunter and a trapper, who through skill and luck went on to become a near-mythic figure in stories about the American frontier. Boone was born in Pennsylvania, but moved with his family to North Carolina in 1752. He traveled to the frontier frequently on hunting and trapping expeditions across modern-day North Carolina, Florida, and into Kentucky. The list goes on. I'll stop it there because it's just a list of places, and that can be quite tedious. Boone is sometimes credited with discovering Kentucky, which is ridiculous as I'm fairly sure someone else must have seen it once. They did have a major role in its colonization by Europeans. In 1773, Boone headed for the interior Kentucky with a group of settlers with the intention of starting a town. Now the Kentucky interior had technically been ceded to the British after the Treaty of Stanwix, but not all the indigenous residents agreed with the treaty, or the incursion onto their traditional lands. Boone's group had gone far when the party was attacked. Boone's son was captured and tortured to death, and the colonists left. However, Boone went back in 1775 when he was hired by the Transylvania Company to blaze a trail to the interior known as the Wilderness Trail. That's something that I've heard of. Boone settled in the area, founding the town of Boonesboro. Really? That cannot be a real place. Arrogant. But she later helped. I'm assuming it is a real place, but that's just such a bad name for a town. It's like, oh god, that's such a bad name. Which she later helped to save from attack by Shawnee warriors in the opening years of the Revolution. Boone was made famous in his later years, not so much by his adventures, though he had many, which I'm sure he'll tell you about, but by books written about his life, some of which contained, let's just call them historical inaccuracies. One where he wrestled a 60-foot manfish springs to mind. In reality, Boone wasn't one to embellish his experiences, which may be why people felt the need to do it for him.